After a day off, the Broncos are back to work here at UC Health Training Center. Fans have made their way back to the practice fields. After today, there's just 4 more chances to come out and cheer on the Broncos. You see the cheerleaders coming out too. The sun is shining, and it's some birthday celebrations as well. We're ready to go here on Good Morning here on a Tuesday morning at the UC Health Training Center. Hello, and thank you for joining us for Broncos Camp Live, powered by Ford. I'm Phil Milani alongside Matt Boyer, and we're pleased to be joined by the Associated Press's Arnie Stapleton. Arnie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me here.
The depth chart just came out just a few minutes ago here, and surprising a little bit is that Bradley Chubb, the first-round pick, is on the first team.
Well, I think that isn't necessarily a huge surprise. Where we knew Chubb was going to be near that 1 or 2 line, it is surprising to see him up there. I think that the big thing for me was just looking at this. You know, a lot of rookies are going to play a huge role. Chubb, one of them. He's definitely earned a lot of praise, though, too, from those offensive linemen. So, Arnie, not necessarily a surprise, but a good sign to see him near that first line.
I think so. I think a mild surprise, only in the fact that Shane Ray's had such a good camp. You know, he avoided surgery, and you know, he's the veteran, and he's really playing well. But maybe it portends a little bit of a special role for Shane Ray coming in on sub packages on certain downs where they can really capitalize on the veterans' skill set, while also, you know, taking advantage of Bradley Chubb, who, let's remember, he fell to them at number 5. This is the one guy in the draft that none of the Broncos mock drafts had falling to them. So we go back to that. It's not a surprise in that sense that he's already, you know, the starter on the depth chart. Now we'll see what he can do in the preseason, how quickly he gets up to speed.
Yeah, excited to see Chubb get his first live action this Saturday against Minnesota. The other surprise there, Devontae Booker. I guess not really a surprise, but the most experienced back on the first team as well.
Right. I think, you know, Devontae, you know, he hasn't been necessarily the big starter here when C.J. Anderson was here, but, you know, he, like you said, he's got the most experience. He also has the best hands right now, I think, coming out of the backfield. That's a big deal with Case Keenum playing so well. Right now you have a bunch of guys, not just at the wide receiver position, but at tight end and in the backfield that can, you know, catch the ball. And so Devontae gets his chance there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Royce Freeman, you know, push him pretty quickly. But for now, I think that makes a lot of sense, too.
I've been so impressed, as Arnie mentioned, with his hands, you know, coming off of those wheel routes, those crossing patterns. His ability to find space in the secondary, I think, has been very, very impressive. He hasn't had a chance to showcase that a lot in the last couple of years. But, again, very, very impressed with his ability to find space.
Well, those are our 2 big takeaways on the depth chart. You can see the whole thing on DenverBroncos.com. Arnie, let's talk about the quarterbacks for a little bit here. Of
Right.
course, Case Keenum, the number 1 guy. What have you been able to see from him through the first week of practice?
I think it's funny in that, you know, we got spoiled by Peyton Manning for all the years that he was here, but then the last couple of years we kind of forgot what it was like to have a good, crisp quarterback, a veteran guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's shown everything that a veteran guy should show.
Yeah, it's nice to see that leadership style. You could see that he's just getting those extra reps with those guys. You want to be able to have that guy cemented as your starter.
10's always near his side, isn't he?
Exactly.
It seems
you always
like,
want to see that.
It seems like Emmanuel Sanders is attached at the hip with Case Keenum. And as you said, that's what you want to see. You want that wide receiver quarterback relationship to be on point as soon as you hit camp, as soon as you leave camp, rather. So it's funny to see how close Emmanuel has tied himself to Case. And you've seen it, the big passes over the top, the crossing patterns, the slants up the seam. I think that relationship right there is going to be key for the Broncos as we head into the regular season.
Definitely. And then the big thing, quarterback competition for the number 2 spot. We see in the first depth chart that Paxton Lynch is that number 2 guy.
Yeah, you know, I think any of the fans that came out here for the scrimmage would disagree with that probably because, you know, Chad Kelly looked so good. But they do have to give Paxton the chance. I think Saturday is going to be key. You know, get him in there 2s versus 2s and see how he does. This is an interesting game coming up because not only do you have Case Keenum, Kirk Cousins, you know, that whole thing, but, you know, 2 of the former Broncos quarterbacks are coming in here, Kyle Slaughter and, of course, Trevor Siemian, and they'll be playing not against the same guys, but they'll be going against Chad Kelly. They'll be going against Paxton Lynch. And so this first preseason game has a lot more intrigue than I think a normal preseason opener has.
What would be a good outing for Paxton Lynch, do you think? What would the fans be like, hey, that was good, I feel comfortable with him?
I would think if he completes 2/3 of his passes, let's say no turnovers. I know he likes to tuck it and run when things don't work out, but maybe go through some progressions and not just, the first guy's covered, I'm going to tuck it and run, but okay, I go through 2 and 3. I think fans need to see that. I think John Elway and Vance Joseph and the staff need to see some of that too. We have to see progress. I know he hasn't played a lot, and they keep talking about how he was hurt last year. That stunted his development. Well, it's year 3, and you got to show some improvement over what he's shown on film and in the practice field in the last couple of seasons.
And then, of course, Chad Kelly there behind him. He did have one heck of a scrimmage on Sunday. You think he's really pushing Paxton?
I think he is. If it's legitimate, we don't know what the coaching staff is thinking, but I will say that Chad has done everything that he could to make it a competition and to win the job as the backup. He's lost weight. He's been in the weight room the whole time. He's really dedicated, and he comes out here and he plays well every single day, and that's impressive for a guy that's taken to the scrap kind of snaps, with the 3s and sometimes with the 2s. But I've been very impressed by Chad really the whole off season since he went away in January when the season ended.
You mentioned you think about the 3 guys, the scrap heap, but he's done a lot with Mark Chapman, a guy who only had a couple of days before the start of training camp to kind of acclimate, and then Jordan Leslie, another guy who not necessarily highly regarded coming into camp, but catching a lot of deep passes from Chad. He's gotten on the same page, and we talked to both of them after practice the other day, and they said they've been impressed with his command in the huddle, his ability to go to those guys and say, hey, here's what I need from you. Hey, next time we need to run it this way. I think Chad's done the most with what he's been given, and it's been showing.
The backup quarterback position, what are they going to need to feel comfortable with one of those guys, or do you think they'll have to go out and get a veteran, if they're not quite comfortable with both of those guys?
I think that they won't hesitate to go and get a veteran. You cannot go into a season with this dynamic of an offense and this good of a defense and the buzz around this team and tell your locker room, okay, we have a big hole behind Case Keenum, and if Case gets hurt, we're looking at another 2017 season. You can't do that. You have to bring in a veteran, whether it's a Yates or a Moore, if it comes to that. Now, if one of these guys, if Paxton shows up well in the preseason or Chad Kelly for that matter, well, then you have some decisions to make. But I don't think John would hesitate to make that move because you don't have depth there right now. We'll see in the next 4 weeks if they have depth there and one of those guys steps up. And you got to have a guy that's able to go 2 and 2, 3 and 3 in case something happens to Case, God forbid.
Well, we know that Case is the main guy. Maybe thinking probably a series or so on this first game?
Probably, yeah. I would say that's about right.
I would think so. Just a little cameo appearance and then turn it over. I would suppose this is going to be Paxton Lynch's first real test of this season, of this off season, and then we'll get to see a little bit of Chad Kelly. So I think, the starters or most of the starters, obviously I don't think Ron Leary, but most of the starters will get a little cameo and just get their feet wet. And then the next game, we'll see a little bit more of those guys.
Matt, we got an inside look at what Case Keenum goes through in practice, right?
We did. We've heard so much about Case Keenum and the impression that he's made, what the relationship with his guys, and we finally got the wire on him a couple of days ago to see how well he has put his stamp on this team so far.
You're mic'd up, you'll let us know. Yeah, today. I'm riding dirty today. Lock in, baby. Lock in, baby. Lock in, Book. Let's have a day today, huh? Play side. Good catch, Timmy! That's what to make up for it, baby. Yeah, stay on him. Lady! Play side. Let's go, okay? Let's go, baby. Yeah, I love that. All right, let's go get some points, boys. Let's go get some points. I love non-scripted periods like that. I love driving drives.
I love seeing you work, man. It's a lot of good things out there.
And we're on the 35. Don't take a sack there,
Nice done. And again, I love the competitiveness.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Good luck this season.
Thanks.
To see the full version, head to denverbroncos.com or the Denver Broncos YouTube page to see the full 3 minutes. One of the things I thought was most interesting, Phil, was the fact that it wasn't just a manual that he was going up to. He was going up to guys like Tim Patrick, like Isaiah McKenzie, getting on the same page with them, really encouraging those guys with what they've done so far. And even the offensive linemen. I mean, Jared Valdir coming over, giving him a fist pound. Matt Paradis coming up to him. I think it was very cool to see how well he's gelled with everybody.
Yeah, and you get a little sense of his personality there, joking around with the guys during the mic'd up. Our thanks to Arnie Stapleton from the Associated Press hopping on with us in this first block. Now we're joined by Ring of Famer Steve Atwater.
My guys, what's up?
Let's go, Steve. Steve, something we heard the other day was Chris Harris Jr. thought that with Case Keenum at the helm, this offense is capable of scoring 30 points a game.
30 points?
Yeah, what do you think about that?
That's a lot of points. And I talked to, the human sports encyclopedia, Andrew Mason, and he gave me a little bit of knowledge. He said in the last 10 years, there have been only 13 teams who have scored 30 or more points in a season, and 5 of those teams went to the Super Bowl. And the Broncos' last time scoring 30 or more points was in 2013 when Peyton Manning had that blockbuster year.
Yeah, that was a record-setting offense that year.
It's not a small thing to say that you're going to score 30 points a game. It's just not done that frequently. And with the explosiveness that we've seen so far from this offense, I think it's possible, but a lot of things will have to fall into place, and one being we'll have to stay healthy on the offensive side of the ball.
With the Broncos defense, if the Broncos offense scored 30 points, they go 16-0, right?
Hey, my prediction is 13-3, so hey, it'll help.
That's not bad. I think Steve, come on, Steve. The one thing I thought was interesting that you mentioned it, Steve, was the fact that, depth is going to be huge. Health is going to be huge. There's always injuries, but you look at the depth chart released today, Deshaun Hamilton, Cortland Sutton, 2 guys that are going to play huge roles. I think that if you give guys like Case a chance with that depth, I think he's going to have a great year.
No, I agree with you 100%. John Elway and the personnel staff did a wonderful job of putting playmakers on that offensive side of the ball, in addition to DT and Emmanuel, of course, putting playmakers on that side of the ball to help Case Keenum's transition be a little bit easier from Minnesota to Denver.
If you want to talk about that 2017 Broncos offense, we could take a look at some of the numbers last season. They ranked 17th in the NFL in total offense. They averaged 18.1 points per game, so it would be almost double the points if they were able to get up to 30. Passing, they were 20th, rushing 12th in the NFL last season. So you would be talking about a pretty major upgrade to get to 30 points.
Yeah, upgrade not just in the passing game, but also in the running game. And last year, C.J. Anderson went over 1,000 yards, and I would imagine for us to score 30 points a game, we'd have to have one of those running backs do something similar to that.
I don't know if I don't know if double is necessarily within reach. I do think they're going to score a lot more points than last year because you mentioned it. There would need to be serious upgrades. But they have upgraded in a lot of different positions. Right tackle, you think about along that, we mentioned the wide receivers already, the tight end position, getting Jake Butt back. He necessarily wasn't a pickup, but now you're getting a healthy Jake Butt, and hopefully that opens things up down the middle for the Broncos. I think a lot of different positions, especially in offense, with those upgrades both internally and externally, I think are going to prove to be huge.
And also with the new helmet rules.
Yep.
Receivers have no fear running routes right up the middle. They can't get hit.
That's a little different than when you were
I know. Steve's like, man, these guys.
Well, I know one thing that was bothering you last season, Steve, was some of the miscommunication amongst the secondary. Chris Harris Jr. said a lot of times that happened after a turnover. Hopefully with Case Keenum, a little bit fewer turnovers. Here's more from what Chris Harris Jr. had to say, as he is very impressed by the Broncos' new quarterback.
People underestimate how Case can move in the pocket. He has great mobility in the pocket. He finds the open hole. He can make all the throws. I'm excited to have him as a quarterback this year from what he showed us in training camp. I think everybody's excited. I think we love being the underdog. Everybody's sleeping on us, but I wouldn't sleep on us too much no more. Not with our quarterback.
Thank you.
So the Broncos looking forward to what this offense can do under Case Keenum. Our thanks to Broncos insider Steve Atwater for joining us. Now we get to check out some of the running backs. You see Royce Freeman catching a pass there. As we bring on Broncos insider Andrew Mason to the set. Mace, the depth chart just coming out this morning. Royce Freeman backing up Devontae Booker. What do you think about that running back room right now?
I'm not really surprised that Devontae Booker is leading it just because he's the veteran, he's the incumbent. But Royce Freeman being ahead of D'Angelo Henderson, Henderson being the 3, Freeman being the 2, that's significant. That reflects his progress. And certainly I think even though you've got Booker 1, Freeman 2, Henderson 3, Dave Williams 4, Philip Lindsay 5, I think it's still a wide-open competition. And B, for someone like Philip Lindsay, I don't necessarily think it reflects where he stands because, of course, he's also first-team kickoff returner right now.
And you mentioned it, Mace. Royce, I definitely think, has shown a lot of flashes. When Arnie was on here a couple segments ago, he mentioned Booker's hands have looked great in the passing game, something that you can take away there. With Freeman, too, Freeman's ability to get into space on those wheel routes and those short stop routes up the middle, I think, have really shown his ability to be a multifaceted back.
The interesting thing is they're both able to catch passes out of the backfield, but that is something that has been Booker's strength compared to running between the tackles. And so you wonder if at some point in the regular season you don't see a situation where, say, Royce Freeman is your guy on first down, but Devontae Booker is coming in on third down when you need that extra guy to catch passes out of the backfield because he can make plays in that regard.
You mentioned Philip Lindsay there. For him to make this team, it's going to be pivotal that he's playing a big-time role in special teams, definitely a kick returner.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Lindsay is up first on kickoff returns. Isaiah McKenzie is up first on punt returns. Now, what's fascinating about that, of course, is with the rules changes this year, kickoff returning is much more analogous to punt returning than it used to be in terms of skill sets. So you wonder if there's only going to be room for one of those guys on the final 53 when all is said and done.
I know Phil's heart just grew when he saw his buff, Philip Lindsay, on that top line.
Well, yeah, he's one of only two rookies on the top line right now. It's Philip Lindsay, undrafted, first-team kickoff returner, and, of course, Bradley Chubb there at strong side linebacker. And that's significant for an undrafted rookie to be on the top line of the depth chart right now, even on a special teams position. That's a huge accomplishment for Philip Lindsay.
It really tells you what they think about Philip Lindsay so far, especially his work ethic. We talked about special teams. We talked about running. We talked about catching the ball. One thing that Vance Joseph brought up the other day, we'll listen to it right here, is pass protection.
All 5 guys are getting reps, and they've all done some really good things. I've been really impressed, Mike, with the pass protection part with the young guys. 37, 2, 36, 23, 33, they've all put their face on guys, and that's tough for a rookie. I watched 37 block Justin Simmons in the A-gap yesterday. It was really impressive. I watched 2 take on Todd, right, and that's a tough matchup for his body type, but he stuck his face in there. So that's been the impressive part, and that speaks to their maturity as football players.
Pass protection definitely going to be key as Vance Joseph checking in early at practice here on this Tuesday morning. Pass protection going to be huge. It's going to be one of those things where you have to develop some chemistry with Case Keenum and make sure you're seeing the same types of things pre-snap. So pass protection going to be big. And you know, around here it was a little bit of a somber day off on Monday as we lost former director of pro personnel, Tom Heckert. Tom Heckert, just 51 years old. He spent 5 years with the Denver Broncos, suffered from amyloidosis, a rare blood disease. There's no cure for that. So our condolences going out to the Heckert family. Definitely played a major role in the Broncos' 2 Super Bowl runs.
Yeah, you go back to when he was director of pro personnel, came in 2013, and of course in 2014 there was that big free agent class of T.J. Ward and Emmanuel Sanders and Aqib Talib and DeMarcus Ware. And T.J. Ward in particular, he tweeted out this yesterday. Heckert was in Cleveland when the Browns drafted him, and then Heckert played a huge role in T.J. Ward coming here to the Broncos in 2014, and we know what he meant to the team. And you know, he was just a good guy. I sat next to him in the press box for some games in 2013, some road games. Always enjoyed talking with him. He had forgotten more about personnel than most of us would ever know. And it's really sad knowing he's not going to be around here anymore.
Yeah, Mace, you mentioned it. his ability to talk with players, media personnel, anybody. I know, personally, I talked to him a bunch. He spent a lot of time in the Midwest with the Browns. Loved the state of Michigan. I'm a Michigan guy as well. So we
went to college in Michigan at Hillsdale.
Right, at Hillsdale. And so, he spent a lot of time up in northern Michigan. We often talked about that too. So just a very, very sad moment yesterday to see. But I was very happy to see the outpouring of, both respect and well wishes to his family. And I think it's sad, but I'm glad to see that he had such an impact on people.
Yeah, a major impact. You saw it all over social media, and he was really able to connect with everybody in the building, treated everybody with respect. So our condolences going out to the Heckard family. As we wrap up the show here on this Tuesday morning, our thanks to Arnie Stapleton for coming on first there, Steve Atwater and Andrew Mason. Be sure to catch Steve and Andrew Mason on Orange and Blue 760 all throughout today's practice, and catch him on TV at 6:30 on Channel 20 for Orange and Blue.
We have more comments, more thoughts on the depth chart coming up on tonight's show. I think probably right at the top. So
yeah, you're going to want to tune in for that. So that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Matt Boyer. I'm Phil Milani. And thank you for tuning in. This has been Broncos Camp Live, powered by Ford.